Welcome to episode 432 of the Find Your Food podcast. Today, we are talking about your relationship with food when you're impacted by GI disorders like IBS. Let's get to it. Hey there, I am Julie Duffy Dillon, registered dietitian and your host of the Find Your Food Voice podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And I have a great episode, selfishly, because I got to chat with a very good friend of mine. Her name is Beth Rosen, and she is the GI dietitian that I rely the most on to help me whenever I am talking to you or when I was working with clients. She was the one that helped me understand how to help IBS, celiac disease, and any other kind of GI conditions without being restrictive. She actually has a book, and if you're watching me on YouTube, you will see it. It's called Gut Goals. And I noticed Beth's book was coming out right when the show is ending. And I said, Beth, would you be willing to be my very last guest on the Find Your Food Voice podcast? And of course, she said yes. And I'm thrilled to be able to bring her expertise to you because I know this is something so many of you experience. Over on my Substack, which is findyourfoodvoice.substack.com, I have been writing a lot about PCOS. And this past month, I did a research deep dive on how fiber impacts PCOS. And I bring this all up now because as I was writing, obviously talking about fiber, it kind of brings you to IBS and other GI issues. And so I asked people on my Substack, how many of you have PCOS and IBS? And it was 50%. So this is an issue that I know many of you with PCOS have. And I also know many people who have a complicated history with food do as well. And in particular, Beth talks about in this episode how up to 98% of people with an eating disorder also have a GI disorder. So that's really interesting. And so many people are like, well, is it the chicken or the egg? Which one came first? And Beth is going to tell you what the research is pointing to. I was really surprised, and then I wasn't. So with that all being said, just a little bit of housekeeping that I want to share with you. Like I mentioned, the Find Your Food Voice podcast is coming to an end. After today's episode, we just have 2 more episodes. I cannot believe it. I can't believe it's actually coming to an end, but it is. And we would love for you to be part of the last episode. If you've been listening to the Find Your Food Voice podcast for so long that you remember its first name called Love Food, and even if you never listened to it, it was Love Food, we would love to hear how the show has impacted your relationship with food. You can send a voice note or an email over to us at info@juliedillonrd.com. We are hoping to share responses in the very last episode, which we are recording really soon after you're starting to hear this episode, after this episode's dropped. So be sure to send it over ASAP. All right, that's all of the housekeeping. We are going to take a very quick sponsor break, and then you are going to hear this episode's letter and meet Beth Rosen. Dear Food, hello there. I love you, but this feels like an abusive relationship. I think about you all of the time. Take care in purchasing and preparing, and you make me sick. I just want to enjoy all of you all of the time. After the birth of my 3rd child, everything inside changed. I was diagnosed with von Willebrand's, lost my uterus, gallbladder surgery, and finally, after pushing and pushing more than a few doctors, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease. I think there are other issues, and I'm tired. My joints are sore. Then the diarrhea. Sorry, food, but if we were really friends, you know I talk about it all the time. Debilitating, violently sick all the time. My surgeon told me 5% of people experience this after surgery, and I was that 5%. File closed. 2 more doctors said the same. I went to a nutritionist that gave me a, quote, special plan, and I couldn't follow through. Tracking everything in and out was very stressful. Would she think I was eating too much, too little, not enough variety? The tracking and worrying about tracking was exhausting. I never went back. Then I found a naturopath that discovered through blood and stool testing I was borderline celiac. So no gluten ever again. She suggested an elimination diet plan to test for sensitivities. I feel anxious, but I'm wanting my life back. I feel amazing. And as soon as I feel amazing, I eat all of the things, all of them. And I'm immediately ill for days. Aches, pain, brain fog, anxiety, breast pain, acne, and yes, diarrhea for hours. This continued for 3 years. Very strict for 3 weeks. I feel great. Sabotage. Cycle continues. I avoided paying for an allergy test because seriously, food, we should have been able to figure this out on our own by now. And the test is so expensive. Then I'm sick. The worst ever, and nearly beg my husband to take me to the hospital. I call and demand the test to be done immediately. The results are upsetting food. It's awesome to have clarity and to see the charts and pages of reactive foods, but I still have to test and play and track. The list of always avoid is so long. I haven't had a clue anymore. I don't want to be sick, but I break down and grab the thing and then feel sick and then think, well, I'm already sick. I might as well have another thing. I have to avoid gluten, dairy, rice, corn, almonds, yeast. Food yeast is in everything. Pea, sunflower, flax, potato, peanuts, mustard, egg whites, on. And irritable bowel syndrome. So I experience symptoms from foods not on the allergy list. I cook for my family all their favorites and make myself something else. Sometimes you are satisfying food, but sometimes I want the other thing. It's expensive to eat this, quote, healthier way all the time. And I definitely don't think we could afford the whole family to eat the same as I do. And they don't want to. I have joked with my healthcare team that I would have better success if they all weren't around and the, quote, other things weren't there. But my family is here and not willing to go without the things, my husband included. Sometimes I make an enormous portion of the, quote, healthy thing and eat all of you. But I want the other thing, and I pace around and look at the other thing. And when I eat you, I then feel comfortable until minutes later when I'm sick. Yes, food sometimes is only a matter of minutes, be it bloating or straight to the toilet. And then I'm angry with myself and lack control. Food, it feels chaotic over here, inside this body and headspace. I don't want to talk anymore about allergic to this, avoid that, diarrhea, and food. People are tired of listening to it. I'm worried now, food, because I'm starting to feel afraid of what to eat and what not to eat. When I'm following my plan, I'm obsessive about details and paranoid about exposure. No wonder I can only feel good and get to a 3-week mark. This relationship is unhealthy and exhausting. I'm afraid of you and in love with you. Can we fix this? Can I have you around and not feel crazy? Sincerely, sick of being sick. So there you have it. That is this episode's letter. And next we're going to join with my friend and colleague, Beth Rosen. But before we get her on the line, let me tell you a little bit about Beth's work. Beth Rosen is a weight-inclusive registered dietitian specializing in gastrointestinal or GI nutrition and disordered eating. With nearly 30 years of experience, she's helped clients manage conditions such as IBS, SIBO, reflux, and gastroparesis. She also educates health professionals via webinars, national and international conferences, and peer supervision. Beth is the co-founder of the EDGI Training Project, co-author of Comprehensive Medical Nutrition Therapy for Co-occurring gastrointestinal and eating disorders, and developer of related professional training programs. Her upcoming book, Gut Goals, A Practical Guide for Managing IBS, is scheduled for release in early 2026. Learn more about Beth at bethrosenrd.com. All right, let's go ahead and give Beth a call. Hey, Beth, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Julie. It's good to see you.
It's so good to see you. I love talking to you, and I'm glad that we didn't run out of time chatting before we started recording, because I was like, are we going to run out of time because we were just catching up before we actually do this recording,
No,
so
I would make extra time.
Oh, you're so sweet.
We need that time.
Exactly. So did you get a chance to read the letter?
I did.
Awesome. So this person, I never specialize in GI nutrition. Whenever I heard someone starting to talk GI nutrition, I was like, Beth, I need your help. And so when I was reading through it, I heard so many different things, right? So many different doctors, so many different recommendations, so many different eliminations, and trying so hard, but then eventually just not able to keep doing it. And so then almost like a binge restrict cycle, but with IBS management. I don't know. And from talking to you over the years, you've mentioned that this is something you see sometimes. So yeah, what's your opinion on what this person's going through?
Yeah. So my first reaction was my heart hurts for them, because
I know. Yeah.
they've gone through, so many different conflicting situations, so much restriction, and yet the only time they felt even the least bit better was on the least amount of
Right.
nutrition, which is not sustainable.
Yeah.
And honestly, it reminded me of my own story, my own IBS
Really?
story, because when I first got IBS, I had a hard time finding someone who knew what it was, knew how to
Mm-hmm.
diagnose it, could, run proper tests to rule out other things.
Yeah.
And I got conflicting information. And so, that's part of the reason why I made the pivot into GI nutrition, was because there was no one to help me, and I was not going to allow that to happen to someone else. And
Yeah.
so it
Yeah.
became, a major passion project of mine in
Mm-hmm.
2010 to be like,
Yeah.
we're going this way and we're going to help other people so that their journey is shorter. And
Right.
this poor person also had a really long journey, and I don't know that they have any answers yet. So it's no
Yeah.
wonder that they're pissed off at food.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they're not getting the advice that they need. And what is it like then to get go to different providers and get different advice? Like, what do you do then when you're
I
in
think it's
pain?
really hard to trust, put
Yeah.
trust in someone who,
Mm-hmm.
who is supposed to be giving you help
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and says either there's nothing we can do, or doesn't take the time to look through what you've brought with you or what you've said you've
Yeah.
done already and gives you the same response, or
Mm-hmm.
someone who's just not read up on the research and gives you outdated information.
Yeah.
Right? How
Yeah.
many people have walked into a doctor's office and been handed a one-page handout on the low FODMAP diet, right?
Right. I mean,
Or
what a
told to take
complicated thing.
fiber.
Take
Yeah,
fiber. Yes.
but not a specific one or kind or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
dosage, right? So I think that's, so much of the frustration of people who have IBS. It's not just the disease itself, because it is chronic and it does come in waves. You have your times when
Mm-hmm.
you feel good and times when you're in a flare. And that's frustrating enough to always know that you have a GI system, because it's always letting you know it's there.
Yeah.
Right. But then also to have a delay of diagnosis, a delay of treatment, just
Mm-hmm.
it changes your quality of life.
Right. And the thing that I get, I don't know if it's as much now, but maybe 10 years ago, the diagnosis of IBS was kind of like this, well, we don't really know what you have, so we're just going to call it this. And then so there was really no treatment plan, which is what you've taught me is no, it's actually a diagnosis.
Thank you.
It's actually a
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, there's a diagnosis. There's criteria to diagnose. It comes from the Rome Foundation. It's the Rome 4 criteria. It includes abdominal pain plus a change in the frequency of your stool output plus a change in the appearance of your stool.
Okay.
Now, that could speak to a lot of GI diseases. So in
Right.
addition to those criteria for IBS, you're also going to rule out all of the what we call alarm features, or the scary stuff. You're going to rule out inflammatory bowel disease like colitis and Crohn's. You're going to rule out celiac disease. And then you're going to rule out if it's an acute infection, something that, like a stomach bug that's just here for the moment and then it disappears, right?
Yeah.
So you have to rule out that kind of stuff to
Mm-hmm.
know for sure that it's not a structural issue, right? That you don't have blockages, you don't have any open wounds, you don't have any, bleeding or strictures, as we call them,
Mm-hmm.
narrowing of the passageways in the GI tract. And then it really gets deemed a functional disorder, where it's not how the structures look, it's how it works. So how it functions. So you can go for a colonoscopy, you can go for an endoscopy, you can do the smart pill cam where you swallow the pill and it takes pictures throughout your whole system, and it won't see anything.
Wow.
And that can be really frustrating. Mm-hmm. But I think it's also the way the information gets delivered.
Yeah.
So if a practitioner says to you, oh, you had a colonoscopy and everything looks great, that doesn't necessarily feel good to somebody who's like, well, I don't feel great.
Yeah.
Right. And that can add to the frustration. But if somebody says to you, you had a colonoscopy and there was nothing structurally wrong with your system, so now we've ruled out XYZ.
Oh, that would be so different.
Right. And now these are the things we're going to consider as we decide what your diagnosis is. And that might mean we try certain medications or we try certain dietary interventions, and that will help us to further know if this is the case.
Yeah, that would be so much different. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it sounds so much like PCOS in the experience. And of course, there's so many people who have both, as we know, because we worked together on cases before. Something that this person mentioned, though, in the letter that I wanted to ask you about, like, I wonder what Beth does, because this person mentioned like tracking the food, how they didn't like it. It almost seemed like triggering to like keep track of what they were eating. Is there anything that you would recommend to people who find themselves like just not wanting to keep track of what they're eating and is it a requirement in the GI world to do this?
I don't think it's ever a requirement to do anything, right?
Okay.
Like you get to give,
that's why I love you,
get to consent, right? You get to consent to treatment. Yeah. And, if that's part of it, the way I always approach food logging is from a data collection standpoint. We're doing it to see if we see a correlation between what you're eating, what your symptoms are, and what your bowel habits look like. And if you don't see it, then I want to look through it and see if I see it. And it's really just to see if there's this connection, and then you stop. It's not a lifelong, now you need to keep track. We're not like getting people back on, diet habits, right? Diet culture habits.
Right.
That's not helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it is triggering to folks, I'll be like, then don't do it.
Yeah.
So maybe just track your symptoms. Or if you're having a day where you're having bad symptoms, on that day, write down what you ate. Or write down what you ate the day before. And then we can just gather the information from those 18 to 24 hours rather than weeks worth of data.
That's the thing that I hear from you that's different from other GI folks is you have that flexibility. You're like, okay, we can figure out another way. Like you don't have to do it just one way. Right. I love that so much. And so someone like this person, I don't know if there's like, this person sounds like they have a very unique experience, but it sounds complicated, which kind of sounds not that unusual, because it's just complicated. What would you recommend to someone if like you were like their consultant or something and you're like, this is what I would do? Is there anything that you would say like the next steps are or something?
I think I might just want to almost start over, right? Like let's start to do food reintroduction, because if you've taken things out of your diet and you don't feel better, then that wasn't the thing. So let's give that back to you. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And maybe it's not food. Which I know maybe not on this podcast we shouldn't be talking about other than food, but
sometimes it's not.
Right. Sometimes it's not food. And so with IBS, there are three main triggers. The triumvirate is food, stress and anxiety, and poor sleep habits. So could it be that you're going through a job change, that you just had a baby, that, work is stressful, that life is stressful, that, living in this world is stressful, that, all the things that could be going on. And could that be part of it? Or do you have poor sleep habits, or do you shift when you sleep? Right. So changing your, like sort of messing with the circadian rhythm can influence IBS. So things like shift work or traveling for work where you're switching time zones during the week, that can impact. So food gets blamed first, but food isn't always the trigger.
Yeah. And it's funny as two dietitians to say that, because we're like, I don't know.
Well, I think you're the same as I am, where I would say like, I don't necessarily condone the idea that food is medicine, because medicine is medicine, and food definitely plays a role in health and in and treatment, but it's not the end all be all.
No,
you have
it's
to use
not
all of the things.
Exactly. I don't think food is that sexy. Like it doesn't have that much power, but there could be certain ones that like, if you have IBS and there's like a certain food that does something, but like, in the end.
Does something how? Because I have a nice story about a gluten-free brownie.
What do you mean? I want to know about this story.
Well, you just said like, a sexy food. Well, gluten-free brownie is, if you haven't been able to eat gluten in a long time and you come across a recipe that's really good. That's a sexy food, right?
That is. Well, and I feel like that has so much to do too with like how this person was in this like, I don't know what else to call it besides a binge restrict cycle. It wasn't a binge restrict, but it was more of like this, I'm avoiding and I can't avoid anymore kind of cycle. And, hearing about the sexy gluten-free brownie, I mean, of course, it's like how often someone who can eat gluten, how often are they able to have a brownie? So like, It's
right.
like,
or a decent one.
glorious. Yeah.
It is. It can be glorious.
To be a hockey puck. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You know, being a native New Yorker and not being able to get bagels for like a good, I don't know, 13 years. And then recently in the past few years, finding 2 great places that actually ship good bagels.
Wow.
Makes a difference.
I'm crying in North Carolina because even though I'm not from New York, in Ohio, at least I had some somewhat decent bagels. And
I don't know. I don't know that I can agree with that.
I know. I mean, if you come here, the bagels, I'm like, oh, but I mean, I have biscuits, but you know, it's not the same.
Definitely not.
Well, you know, the other thing I remember you teaching me ages ago, and I'm wondering if you'd be okay with like talking about this too, is, you know, how eating disorders can impact someone getting a GI disorder or having IBS. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So there's data that shows that up to 98%, that's a lot of people, with an eating disorder ends up with one of these functional GI disorders, whether that's IBS or gastroparesis, which is delayed gastric emptying, right? That's another one of them. And it's been shown, you know, we used to think which came first, the chicken or the egg. But it's basically been shown that first comes the eating disorder, then comes the GI disorder. You know, it comes from mostly restriction, right? And restriction changing how underfed we might be. And then how that impacts our microbiome and all of our, like, the way we process information between our gut and our brain. And then when that gut brain superhighway isn't working correctly anymore, things go awry. And then we start to feel fullness before we're full, or we don't feel hunger anymore. And then that just adds to the restriction and all of those kinds of things. Right. And same with, you know, binge eating. You get to the point where you're ignoring fullness cues. The stomach gets stretched to a point where maybe it's not working how it should anymore.
Yeah. And this is something that takes time. So like this person's letter, you can tell like this person's like talking about years of experiences, which is really like, that's so much of like a complicated history with food is going to take time to repair
and there is that small amount of people who have the GI issues first, and because there's such a fear around food, they do tend to end up with some disordered eating behaviors. Usually it's not related to body image, so that's how you can sort of tell the difference. It's more related to fear of pain, so it's more of ARFID related. But either way, it's still disordered eating, no matter when it came, if it came first or it came after. It's still, you know, it still impacts how you can care for your body.
Okay. And I know that if someone has an eating disorder and they're like actively trying to recover and they're also wanting to repair their GI tract, there may be certain steps that look different. Like, what do you suggest to someone who's like in the throes of an eating disorder and they have maybe IBS? Like, what would you say like they should work on first?
So I usually have people start with becoming better nourished, regardless of the symptoms, and maybe using supplements or enzymes to help with the symptoms. I know a lot of people like to get to the root cause nowadays and like, let's treat it from a functional or integrative approach. But for people with eating disorders, you can't necessarily put these, you know, dietary interventions in place because it could add to more restriction. So first, I would focus on trying to get them to eat regularly, you know, 3 meals up to 3 snacks, getting them to eat adequately, right? Where there's nutrients or balanced meals every time they get to choose food. And then working on some variety, right? So that we get to feed that microbiome and see if that helps even in the beginning, because there are some supplements that can be taken depending on the person to help with, you know, stomach pain, to help with bloat, to help with gas, to help with loose stool, to help with constipation. So there are tools we can use as dietitians for sure, but then the doctors have access to so many medications. So there's a team approach that sort of needs to happen for these folks, so that they're getting help with their eating disorder, but they're also getting help with their GI symptoms. And they might not necessarily get a full treatment plan for it, because they really need to get to a place where their body's well nourished in order to tell where the symptoms are coming from.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. So like helping people with like the foods that they're like comfortable eating, like get nourished, and treat the symptoms maybe with like supplements or medications. And then once a person is like nutritionally kind of coming along, then you can get to, let's maybe see what could be provoking this. Yeah. Okay.
And
that sounds
sometimes
good.
just by eating regularly, and not in every case, but sometimes just by eating regularly and adequately, that's enough to quiet some of the symptoms.
That's so great. That's so great.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, I want to also say there's the other side of that coin, which is sometimes you have an eating disorder and you get to recovery and you're doing really well, and then you get a GI disorder. So that happens too, like at the tail end of recovery. Not sure why.
Yes, to say, why does that happen? That seems like a sick and twisted way to.
It's a sick and twisted thing. It really is. And I've seen it a few times, and it's sad because people do all of that work to get to a good place with their health and their nutrition and their body, just to have what feels like their body betraying them again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that stinks. I want people to know that you have a new book coming out. It's called Gut Goals. I have it right here. It's the cutest. I love it.
Thank you.
A practical plan for managing IBS. And where can people find this book? And when's it coming out? I can't remember.
So it's coming out. It's available for pre-order right now. It's coming out March 31st, wherever books are sold. So, your Barnes & Noble, your Amazon, your local bookstore, if you ask for it, they'll get it for you.
Perfect. I love it. And so if someone wants to work with you or, wants to know more about you, where's the best place for them to go?
Well, I'm not seeing one-on-one patients for my practice anymore, mostly supporting dietitians and doing some work with a company named Oshi Health. But if you want to find out more about me, you can do so at BethRosenRD.com and on socials at BethRosenRD.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Beth. And I know I told you before we push record, but you're like my last official interview on the podcast. So I was like, it has to be Beth. I love Beth.
I'm so honored. And, the way our professional and personal friendship has developed over these years, the amount, it's an honor to be in this spot, but I'm also so thrilled for you to be moving on to other things, and how much you've helped people over the past, 10 years?
Yes, this podcast is 10 years old. Like this podcast came out before we knew Trump was going to be president.
Those were the days.
I know. Man, ignorance is bliss, right? As they say.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. But so I love how our friendship has evolved over the years. And it began it was maybe like the first year of the podcast is when we first met. So it just seemed fitting for you to be on here. So thank you for being the last guest.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, have a great rest of your day.
You too.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Beth Rosen. Before you go, remember, Food has written back, so I will be reading Food's letter in just a few moments. And be sure to stay connected over on Substack, findyourfoodvoice.substack.com. There you'll hear more about this episode and also topics along the way. It's also where you can stay connected with me after the Find Your Food Voice podcast ends in just 2 more episodes. I can't believe it. We would love for you to be a part of the last episode. That's where you can share what you have learned along the way. If you listen to Love Food way back 10 years ago, or you have just started when it was Find Your Food Voice, it doesn't matter. We would love to hear from you. Send a voice note or an email at info@juliedillonrd.com. All right, let's hear Food's letter back. Dear Trying to Age Gracefully, we are tired from the tug of war too. We see you trying to manage your health and follow doctor directions, but so many times the doctors disagree. How hard for you. Ideally, we recommend finding a dietitian who is a GI specialist that understands a person's relationship with food. There are ways for you to feel satisfied and enjoy food again. We know it will take time and it's worth it. Be kind to yourself navigating all of this. This is hard work and good work. Love, Food. This episode of Find Your Food Voice was written, produced, and edited by me, Julie Duffy Dillon. Rachel Popick helped get this episode all ready for your ears, and Colleen Bremner was rooting for us all along the way and also helping behind the scenes with so many different things. Stay connected over on Substack, findyourfoodvoice.substack.com, and we look forward to being in your ears in 2 weeks. Until then, take care.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.